Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to CIRIA's third webinar, I think, on the benefit of SuDS tool. My name's Chris Digman from MWH, and myself with Bruce Horton.
Yep, also here.
Today we'll give you a bit of an overview of the BeST benefit of SuDS tool, but also have a bit of a live demonstration, which there was a bit of a risk in terms of just using some of the functionality of the tool and in combination with the guidance. We'll try not to flick around too much from screens to screens. Just before we make a start, Suzanne Simmons from CIRIA, who's been the project manager for this project, will just give a bit of a brief outline on some of the ground rules for today's webinar before we go into the presentation first, and then followed by the live use of the tool. So, Suzanne, do you want to just kind of set just some ground rules so people know how to kind of make contact with us on that?
Absolutely. Welcome, everyone. It's great to see so many people interested in the BeST tool. We've got, as Chris said, we've got possibly up to 200 people lined up to join the webinar this afternoon. One thing to note is that we are recording this webinar, and it will be placed on both the CIRIA and the SuDS website, so you can share it with your colleagues and your networks. There are a few little ground rules for engagement during the webinar today. We suggest that you keep the control panel open, but perhaps put it to one side, obviously, of your presentation. It will be recorded, so if you speak, your question will be aired and will be on the recording. And if you do wish to speak during the presentation, you can click the hands up symbol, and that will draw attention to you, and we'll wait for an appropriate moment to ask your question, and I'll be steered by Chris as to when we'll stop and take pause. Initially, I'll probably read the question out for Chris to answer. If we do need to have any comeback on it, then we can open up for dialogue, particularly at the end of the presentation. We've allowed ourselves, I would say, about half an hour to have Q&A session at the end. If you do speak, please do introduce yourself, and we will unlock your microphone, but also you have to unmute yourself to be heard. A good way to communicate is to put the question in the chat box, and I can read that out. And if we don't get a chance to respond to your question today, don't fear. We will follow it up with a response after the webinar, and there'll be opportunities if you've got any questions about BeST to make contact with CIRIA directly, and we can share that with the project team. Okay, well, I'll hand that over to Chris and Bruce then to take the presentation forward, if that's okay.
Thank you, Suzanne. So, I said, welcome everyone. This project has been the combination of several years worth of work, which I think we launched this a couple of years ago now, and since then there's been 2 rounds of updates, enhancements, and some new things added to the tool, with the latest version soon to go live. We won't be diving too much into that today, because we're going to be functioning on a lot of the core functionality of the tool when we go through a live example. We'll just make a start though, and just so the things that we're looking to run through, we'll just briefly cover off kind of why use BeST. We'll talk around some of the benefits that the tool has embedded within it. When's a good time to use it? What are the 4 components of BeST? And then we're going to run through an example in the tool, which we've already populated, but we'll actually run through using the tool and talk through some of the thinking and decision making that we would make in conjunction with using the guidance. And then we'll just wrap it up with a short summary. As Suzanne's mentioned, if we want to try and actually ask questions as we're going along, then actually do just put your hand up, and we'll look to try and actually address them. So firstly, why should we use BeST? Well, BeST contains 22 benefits, and it helps to provide an estimate of what the monetary value of those are, and it allows you to then actually compare them to the cost, so we can have a direct benefit and cost comparison. The monetized values are in present value, so again, just to make that actually easy to actually compare against costs. I think what's real fundamental though is actually having both going through the thought process of when you do the benefit assessment, which asks you several questions, which are quite helpful. It allows you to then probably go and actually engage other stakeholders who may be interested in SuDS or in the work that you're actually looking to actually do. And so not only can it be used to actually help maybe engage stakeholders, but it also might actually help with gaining financial support from other stakeholders. And I think finally one of the key things is actually BeST is a robust and actually simple to use tool with plenty of support and guidance, but can be used in bite sizes as you need to use it when you're actually filling in the tool. And it's been built on an extensive search of literature and information for how you can value benefits related to SuDS. For example, if we wanted to pick health, there's a number of benefits for health, both linked to the physical physical health and also mental health and well-being. And there's some simple ways within there that actually allows us to estimate where SuDS may contribute to health. Another good one might be amenity, where amenity might be around actually enhancing the attractiveness of the urban area and the connectivity. But what's quite important here, and actually within BeST, is we do provide some guidance to where some of these benefits overlap. And what's quite important is that we don't double count benefits, and we'll look to draw that out as we go through this presentation and the live example. And so the benefits covered very much cover what you would expect you would see from improving using kind of particularly green infrastructure, sustainable drainage. But it also allows us to incorporate ones which are not purely from the individual intervention that you or measure that you actually build, but also from the overall performance of the system. And I think that's a really important factor just to bear in mind here, in that some of these benefits you understand them when you actually understand the whole performance, either of the sustainable drainage system itself, or of the wider catchment that it actually sits within. So when would we go and actually use BeST? Well, BeST can be used in a number of phases. When it's most ideal, it's probably in kind of phase 4 here. So if we have that kind of this is a high level typical delivery investment cycle, where you might understand the reasons for your work, you develop some designs and options, you might estimate their performance before you start to evaluate the benefits with the BeST tool. And that's really the ideal time to actually be using the tool, primarily because you are armed with some information. You probably understand the types and sizes of the different types of SuDS that you're looking to use. You probably understand their size, how well they're going to be distributed. And that's an important factor for when you come to actually estimate the benefits. But you can use it earlier. And so you could use it earlier with actually less certainty. You may make a few more assumptions, but you can actually bring it in earlier to actually give you a bit of a feel for what kind of benefits, maybe who to go and actually engage and actually talk to, because the benefits of what may actually arise from what you're actually looking to build. So, oh, Bruce, did you want to come in there?
Well, I was just going to add, Chris, thanks. There's also, I think in the case studies that we've kind of worked through since we've developed the tool, an opportunity often to for a kind of feedback, an iterative process. So it's apparent sometimes that you can increase the benefits or the potential benefits of SuDS by amending or looking at different options, design options. So it's worth often going back, once you've done some initial analysis, going back to the sort of the beginning of this process cycle to see if you can enhance the benefits in some way, because some of the less tangible benefits, like health, for example, can become quite important, and that can affect how you design the scheme.
Absolutely. No, I think that's a really valuable, Bruce. So it's you can use it in quite a flexible way to support your work. So within BEST, I think I mentioned earlier, there's 4 components. So you have the evaluation tool, which is what we'll be kind of focusing on today, and also the guidance, which goes along really hand in hand with using the evaluation tool. But alongside that, you also have the options comparison tool. So if you are looking at more than one option, then it's just a very simple tool that allows you to take the outputs from the evaluation tool and insert for a number of options and be able to create some graphs and comparison rather than having to actually go and actually do that from scratch. And also there is a user manual which is specifically focused on just some of the functionality and actually using the tool itself as well. So there's 4 key components to this to cover off your various different needs in that. So we'll look to move on. We've deliberately looked to keep this as quite a short introduction to BEST this time. There is quite a deeper and introduction to some of the previous webinars, which you can go on back online and actually view. But we wanted to focus actually a little bit today on actually using the tool itself. So we're just going to run through and so briefly give a little bit of background to an example where BEST has been used to evaluate a project in Hammersmith and Fulham in London, and it was a EU Life Plus project or part funded. So this is work which Groundwork have led in conjunction with Hammersmith and Fulham, and funded with the EU Life and also with the Mayor of London. So and this was all around improving the social housing landscapes around 3 areas, and we'll briefly touch on those 3 areas in a moment. And the images on the left-hand side here is actually one of the interventions actually placed in, which just took a grass strip and has turned that into a kind of bio-infiltration swale, which does have some potential to still drain back to the combined sewer, but you can see the disconnection shoe from one of the downpipes going into that little swale there. So just very briefly, just a little bit of background behind the project, with the objective to retrofit kind of climate change adaptation measures, but really it both actually has led to interventions around SuDS, but it's also visually improved the urban place there. It's provided greater connectivity and movement around these estates. And so a lot of the focus here for our work is around on the sustainable drainage element, of which the scheme cost for that was around about £300,000, but the overall cost for the scheme was a little bit over £400,000. And so the types of measures which have been kind of put in, particularly around kind of sustainable drainage systems with green roofs on some buildings, a number of swales, bioretention areas, but really tries to fit it in within the existing urban area. So So the free sites, if you know your area of London, we have Hammersmith Bridge just here, which is where one site is, Fulham football ground here, and so just the sites are in quite close proximity to each other in the busy, urban, well built up areas. And we've got around about 600 properties in total in the area, which were probably directly impacted by these interventions, of course surrounded by an awful lot more. And rather than trying to actually give you lots of detailed plans, if you're engineers, I know you would have loved that, but we're just going to have a few photos here, which just looks between the before and after shots of some of the interventions which are now actually built. What you can see in the top is how it's actually moved from a hard surfaced area to one which is both a more pleasant, can manage water, but also allows connectivity actually across the area. If we look on the bottom, we've gone from kind of a green space which is kind of fenced in, not particularly used, to an area which we've got some interventions actually put in, which allows both the water to be actually stored, infiltrated, but provides more kind of biodiversity and actually interest within the area. I mean, so the images currently, which we've been kind of just going through, have been showing the improvements and the changes in the area, just showing various different sustainable drainage system types being constructed and the change to the areas. Okay, and so this is just the final slide on the images. So you can see kind of quite a real enhancement and change within that local area. So hopefully that kind of gives a feel for what we're actually seeing here. So we're going to move to actually using BeST. And so in the context of this, we're using it really in terms of if we'd actually just designed it, and so we knew what was actually going to be proposed and be built. So we'll move on to the example, and I'll try and slowly. I'm conscious sometimes these things can take a while to update on people's screens, so I'll try and slowly move between the spreadsheet tool and also the guidance now as we go through this. So this is the tool, and when it opens, you normally get a little box that says OK, are you OK to proceed? And you would start often at the projects, so you'd maybe just make a few points on home, which is around just some basic project details, and then you would go to the project inputs tab, and so this is a tab where you first start to enter in some information about the project. The tool is made up of some very simple color coding, so for input data where you just want to write some text, it's in orange, and on this screen actually tells you just to type into the box. On some screens which are blue, you either double click or you click on them to actually select what you want to choose. So when we're looking at scheme types, there's typically 3 types that would be relevant to sustainable drainage. It's either new development, redevelopment, or retrofit. So you can select that and press OK. And essentially, that's what you can actually do going all the way through the tool. So you can, what's quite important is you enter in the present value cost. The tool allows you also to compare baseline versus proposed. Now in this situation, the baseline is 0, and we have a proposed option, but we've allowed that functionality because many of the benefits are about what is a change. and therefore you may need to be able to measure that. So it's important, if you want to look at the cost benefit towards the end of the tool, once you've done your assessment, to actually place in that value here. And you can again actually put in what your scheme drivers or objectives might be, who your supporters are, and who your scheme funders are. And this is really just to have a log of information about actually what you want to record down. Now, one of the really important parts, though, is actually selecting the discount rate. Some funders require a variable discount rate, and so if we're to progress all the way to the right of this tab and go to the present values calcs, which we'll just go to there for just one moment, within here you have your current discount rate of 3.5%, which works from that front page, but you can vary the discount rate here, which will then update the values through the tool.
Hello, Chris. You just cut out again for about 30 seconds. I wonder, could you go to the start of your presentation for this particular slide again?
Yes.
Sorry.
So I was probably just talking around the screening questions there, Suzanne.
Yeah.
So the screening questions are a really important factor here. To enable us to reduce down the amount of work that we actually need to do. And I think, and that's quite key, so we don't go and look at every single benefit in detail and take an awful lot longer to do an assessment. And it also helps you think around what benefits are actually important. So if we start firstly with the page itself, all the benefits are actually on the page. There's a question, there's further aspects to consider, and then you can say what you think your likely impact is. So it's a way to record what your thought process is, and it allows you to then make a decision about whether you open the impact sheet or not, yes or no. So you're not presented with 22 benefits and not wondering which ones you should actually look at. When you've actually been through that process, you can enable pages, and when you press enable pages, it'll automatically open up the tabs that you've selected to open up based on your initial screening, as well as potentially the SuDS Use tab. So we'll just work through the first example here, really, around air quality. So the question around.
Sorry, can I just cut in again? There's a question here from Amanda McDermott wanting to know if you could please explain what you mean by discount rate.
So the discount rate is the rate at which all benefits occurring in the future are discounted, so that you can calculate a present value. So that all that means is we want to think about all the benefits that might occur now, but also the benefits that will occur in the future, right? But the benefits in the future tend to have a lower value, and the reason for that might be because we're richer in the future, economic growth. There's various motives for discounting, but the 3.5% rate that Chris has put into the tool is a kind of default rate that's recommended by government, but you can choose a higher or a lower rate than that. Choosing a higher rate would diminish those benefits occurring into the future at a faster rate. So effectively, 3.5% benefits that occur in about 10 or 20 years time would have a value of about half as much as they would if they occurred today, right? So it's just a means of incorporating future impacts and bringing them into today's money effectively.
Thanks, Bruce. So with the screening, you can, as I said, you can enable the pages, but I think we were just about to talk about the air quality question here. So firstly, the question is, will the drainage or the SuDS also change the level of air pollution? And there's some important things that you might consider here. So is the site an air quality management area? Will the scheme involve green infrastructure, so in particular tree planting? And is the scheme in a populated area or transport corridor? Because one of the important things here, and for yourself ask yourself a question, is, am I in a location where these could contribute to an improvement in air quality? So, for example, here in London, with this example, the answer is yes, and we'll just come on to the guidance in a moment, which will actually just help us, which would help you actually understand a bit more. If you're in the middle of a countryside, you would probably actually say that whilst the trees could actually improve air quality, they're actually not going to actually make a difference in that location. So if you've actually gone through that, you might say, well, depending upon the number of trees would depend upon the likely impact. And in this scheme, a small number of trees, 20, have been planted. So we think it's going to have a small impact, but we think that we should actually value that. And now there is a little bit in terms of getting familiar with the tool also to kind of actually understand the level of benefits that you're going to see. But you can do that from seeing the guidance with the monetized values, which are linked to a quantity, to actually help you understand that. So you would go through it and you would ask yourself these kind of questions, and if you're not sure, you can always go and actually have a look in the guidance and look in more detail. And so at this point, I'm just going to bring up the guidance here. So this is the guidance, which is the latest version. And whilst I'd probably encourage you, if you're coming to use it, to be familiar with just bits like chapter 1, which is around assessing the benefits and when is an assessment required in chapter 2, and maybe the screening element as well in chapter 3. It's quite important then, I think, to not view this as a big long guidance document that you have to read from cover to cover, and it's best dipped into when you want to actually be either reminded or understand actually how to go and evaluate a particular benefit. And so we'll just, I tend to always use the actual, this kind of navigation on the side to jump around nice and easy to each part. So we can jump to air quality, for example, and this nicely links into, so why would you actually assess air quality? So the guidance for each benefit gives you an impact pathway, so you can just kind of think around the logic behind this, and it'll tell you about the method of assessment. And so for air quality, this also provides a useful link to a online site, which is in GIS, where you can put your postcode in or the site location, and you'll be able to actually understand the air quality within that area. So straight away you can really actually understand, is this a place where my improvements could actually lead to an improvement in air quality. And it tells you about the average pollutant values for annual uptake, and actually where those values have actually come from. So we'll just dip back to the tool now, because when you press Enable Pages, if you've selected certain types of benefits where it needs to understand the types of SuDS that you've used, it will actually open up this tab here. This is the SuDS Use tab. And there's a number of rows in here that allows you to enter information about the SuDS that you have used. And you can do this in a number of ways. You can either just use a few lines and summarize up for example, the size of the green roofs, the number of rain gardens, the number of trees, or as we've done on this one, we actually went into some detail just to break down the different sites that we've actually got, and then entered in the numbers. And all these are then actually automatically calculated to then be used through the tool. On somewhere it's useful to have some extra explanatory information like these grey cells. you'll actually see there's actually some supporting information to actually help you actually fill that in, just so we're clear and everyone knows what should be entered into those cells. So the screening questions also, and I think this is a really important part of the tool, identify some potential stakeholders you may want to talk to. So the potential stakeholders allows us to assess the who may be interested in based on the SuDS that we're actually looking to put and the benefits. And this is a useful tab because it allows us to see through the green, amber, red, of which you can actually turn off some of these, so you can actually see the wood through the trees of which ones might be important to which stakeholders. And they then may be ones who you actually have a conversation with as you're going through. Okay, so we're going to move through just to look at a couple of tabs where you would start to fill in information. And the one thing which I'll just flag is the potential double counting tab, which just helps highlight where you may get double counting between different benefits. And it's worth just becoming familiar with that, but we'll also come on to that in a moment in a little bit more detail, where Bruce will just explain why we might choose amenity compared with health and recreation. So if we look at firstly air quality, and within each tab, you've always got the chance to actually write some summary and written evidence to help explain why you've maybe gone and chosen a value, some background. And we think always that's quite important. So if you come back to it in 6 months or a year time, you can actually understand some of the decisions that you've actually made. So in air quality, there's two sections, but the number of sections vary depending upon which benefit you're looking at. The first section is always around, have you already calculated the impact? So if you've done an external assessment, you've already got some values, then you would place the present value in here, and then you can adjust the confidence values for either the quantity and the monetized value. And I'll just briefly explain these two boxes because these appear throughout the whole tool. We recognize when we're developing the tool that you may not always be 100% sure that you've got the numbers right. Now that happens, but not only in terms of whether the performance of something, so in this case the quantity, but also on the monetized value. So you can select these boxes that allows you to put in a percentage. Either 100% of the quantity you want to use, down to 25%, of which we just went with standard 25% intervals. Or you can do the same thing around the level of confidence of the monetary values selected. And you may want to do that because it's important to recognize that you don't feel you've quite got the same situation as what's outlined within the guidance for the benefit value. So if our confidence is a little bit less, we can actually reduce down what we think the benefit value will be. And so basically these two boxes are multiplied to then actually reduce, to come up with a factor that actually will change the present value. So you have one before confidence and after confidence. So if we come to air quality itself, now this is one of those tabs where a number of the cells automatically update with information from the SuDS Use tab. So in these green boxes here with the dashed line around, the numbers automatically appear, so you don't actually have to re-enter them. What you do need to do is to go and actually select vegetation pollutant removal levels for whether it's for the vegetation or for the trees. And so if I just click on one of these, you can you probably can't see the number. The number's not important here, but what you can see is this is linking to actually the values library, which is visible, and you can see in the tool. It's just to the right-hand side of all these tabs at the minute. And within there, the values library tells you what pollutant removal level is available. So in this case, we've always tried to put in a low, central, and high number. In this case, we didn't actually have a low and a high number, so we've only got a central estimate. But if a user wants to put in their own particular number, they can actually enter that in the user-defined box in the values library, and then that will automatically work through into this cell here. So we can select that number, and by selecting the numbers and also importantly putting in an evaluation time frame. Now this links back to the discount rate as well. So your start and end period is what actually goes and actually calculates the amount of benefit that you see, which decreases year on year. Within each section, you have a summary then of which some are automatically calculated, and you can put in your percentage for your confidence around the quantities and the valuation. Now in this particular case, we're confident in terms of what we've designed was going to be built, and we actually know it has been built based on those photos. And we're also confident that actually the values used for the monetary are very relevant to our situation and context here. So we're comfortable in putting 100% value in this case. And these are the two key numbers that we're looking at here. So this is the present value before confidence applied and the present value after confidence applied. And obviously in this case, with both being 100%, those values come out the same. But they're the values that we'll actually see towards the end of the tool when we look at the results.
It's just worth saying, Chris, in terms of the monetary values, because they come from different sources depending on the benefit category that we're looking at. So we've chosen 100% in this instance because the monetary values related to air quality improvements come from the government.
Yep.
So they're official government values, and they relate to the reduced damage caused by air quality improvements, particularly the kind of reduced health costs. So that's why we've chosen 100% in this case. You might not always choose that for the monetary values.
No, thank you, Bruce. No, but that's a really good point around the confidence of the source there. So we'll just quickly look at the amenity tab before we'll jump to the results and sensitivity analysis and some of the graphs that gets produced, just so we can allow a little bit of time for questions at the end if people have them. So this is the amenity tab, and we've entered in some information for why we've for the numbers we've used and where those numbers have actually come from. So we've just got a record of what we've actually done, and we've used two parts of section AM2 on amenity in this case. And so the first one is general street improvements through greening, and in this case we've used the total number of residents who live in the direct vicinity of these improvements, which is a total of 1,400. And so again, what you would normally do, you would go to the guidance and you can read the guide, you can click on amenity, and this talks you through how to determine what you might actually want to actually enter in for the numbers for the quantities for any part of the amenity tab. So if we scroll down, we can actually see some of the values which are used in here. And so in that first benefit that we're looking at, which is street improvement, we've actually used the low value in here because we think that best matches our case and context. So as at the start, the context is really important when we're doing this benefit assessment. So you can see from the drop-down tool, 1.72, there's some supporting information here, and you can click and you can select your 1.72. Now, because in this case, it's not quite a direct transfer for the monetized value, and you can never quite be sure of the number of residents who might be fully kind of benefiting from it. We've actually just reduced down the quantity, the confidence a little bit here, so we don't overestimate that. And again, you can see we've entered in our start and end year evaluation point. And so just finally on the amenity tab, just before we jump to the results, this one is around property price increase, and there's some good evidence around enhancement of local, enhancement of properties based on local enhancement with green infrastructure and sustainable drainage. And so in this here, you enter the average house price in this box here, but our closest match is to public open green space enhancement. And we've took quite, and we've looked at, and so all of these are flats in this area. So, and although there's 600 flats spread across the areas, we've actually already gone with quite a conservative number, which is the number which is more primarily overlooking where there's been actual improvements. So we've already put in 120. But we've applied quite a low confidence and in the quantity and valuation here, basically because although there is good evidence, there's also quite a lot of uncertainty in terms of exactly what value that would actually change for different prices around the country. So one of the things we're trying not to do here is to be too overly optimistic around these values. And importantly, we've actually put in a start date a few years away from now, once some of the measures built have matured. And this is a one-off benefit. So once it's happened, it's actually happened. And so you can see the start and end date in this for this benefit is actually the same. And so ultimately, we end up with this value as our benefit value. Now, we've also done the assessment for the other benefits, and as I said, this example will be available online. So I'm just going to jump through to some of the other tabs now to just give us a little bit of time at the end. So firstly, we have our summary of outputs tab, and this just collates all the information together so you can see it in one go. It's useful to spot whether you think that you've actually filled things in right, are you missing anything, and do you agree with the numbers. So it's a very useful tab just to browse to make sure that you're comfortable with what you've actually done. The next tab I'm just going to move on to is the sensitivity analysis tab, and we've included this just so you can increase and decrease some of the values in a very simple way to help identify where you've got benefits that are dominant and or could actually have a big overall impact, and where you may decide you want to go and get more or better information on. And this automatically brings in the values from the summary of outputs monetized, and then you can go in and select what value that you actually want to choose within here. And very recently we've added in actually a slight addition purely because if you can select 25% with the benefits in the other tabs, we want to be able to actually take that a little bit lower. So these automatically then calculate the present, so the present value after confidence, looking at a low and high value. I've just seen your question, Amanda. We'll just pick that up at the end related to green infrastructure. So if we just see the summary results now, and we've summarized the results using two evaluation frameworks. One's using ecosystem services, which splits things into provisioning services, regulatory services, cultural services, and supporting services. And we've also used the triple bottom line framework, which is around social, environmental, and financial. And we've mapped the benefits to each of those frameworks because we're quite aware that people may want to present these in different ways. You may just want the overall value, but we're trying to make this tool as usable to meet different people's needs.
I think Chris has just cut out again, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So what he's talking about is a small summary table with the colours there, which just tells you overall the total value for your total present benefit. So all the different benefit categories that you've been through aggregated together, and before and after confidence, and brings in the costs as well, and then gives you a net present value. So that's just benefits minus costs, and a benefit cost ratio. So that's one divided by the other.
And what it also has a benefit distribution score, which we've just graded A to F to help work out, do you have a good distribution, equal distribution of benefits, or do you have benefits which are dominant over others? So this table automatically brings in the values from the previous tabs for the different benefits, and then there's a series of graphs that are automatically created. Some come through slightly better than others depending upon if you have one very dominant benefit, and in this case, where amenity is quite dominant, you can clearly see that from the pre-confidence case. So there's pie charts, and then there's various bar charts which you can either copy and paste, or you can also export these directly from the tool into a Word document. So that's a brief run through of actually using the tool, and the thing is, again, I would stress is the importance of using it in parallel with the guidance. And if you use it in parallel with the guidance and the user manual, if you're not quite sure which things to kind of press, then it should be quite a straightforward thing to go and actually use. Like with anything, it takes a little bit of time just to actually understand how to undertake those assessments and have some confidence behind the decisions that you're actually making. But the guidance is the guidance manual is there to actually help you to actually do that. So we'll just go finally back to summarize and then pick up on any final, if there's questions available, and pick up the one from Amanda to start off with. So in summary, the tool provides an indication of the potential level of wider benefit. That can include those directly related to sustainable drainage and what may arise from those SuDS, as individually or as a whole. So if you were looking at flood risk, you may be wanting to actually look at the SuDS as part of a wider context to understand the impact it has, to enable an evaluation and a number to actually be placed into BeST. The same thing might be said if you're looking at pumping wastewater flows, for example. What it also then does is it not only gives you a level of the wider benefit, but understand who might benefit by looking at those stakeholders who might be involved and be able to link to those stakeholders and what interest they may actually have. It supports conversations with a look at wider funding opportunities, being able to kind of indicate where you think the benefits may arise from will enable that and support that discussion. And finally, it can also help to identify which benefits you may wish to investigate further, either to improve the confidence around the quantities that you're using, which, as you can see from the tool which we've run through, can make quite a difference in the numbers that come out. Or you may actually, even if it's really, really important, do some local evaluation. So we'll look to wrap up here and then just deal with any questions. So these were our funders who we're very grateful to and thankful for supporting the project over several years. And if you want to know more and you haven't actually downloaded it yet, you can download all the components of BeST from the the SuStrain website, and they're all free. There is no charge. And you could also, if you have queries, you can email best@sustrain.org, and that email will find its way to Suzanne or someone else within CIRIA, which will then tend to find its way to Bruce or myself, and we'll be able to come back with an answer in terms of using the tool there. So we'll look to take questions now. Okay, so our first question was, looks like BeST would help develop green infrastructure, which may or may not specifically include SuDS, e.g. just tree planting. Any potential pitfalls in doing this? Well, it's a very good question. I think there are some pitfalls depending on how you want to use, and probably taking trees is probably quite a good example. We've used some robust evidence to help in terms of look at air quality. Other benefits related to trees, of which there are a number, could include a reduction in flood risk if you were to look at how the water was being collected and drained and overall assessed. So I wouldn't look at that in that example. You would need to be quite careful in terms of how you might actually assess flood risk. They're also very helpful in terms of potential for cooling and kind of shade, for example, so from a building temperature perspective. But one of the things that we looked at to find an easy and quantifiable way currently for us to do this within the tool, we actually struggled with a simple evaluation approach to enable that to happen. But it's certainly an aspiration in the future to be able to kind of actually pick up something like that. So I think there is the potential to use it specifically for some GI, but you would want to take a little bit of care with that. And Bruce, chip in with anything on any answers as we're going through.
Yeah, so I mean, on that there are links and signposts within the tool as well. So to other evidence. So, for example, on trees, it links directly to the iTree tool and uses some of the evidence from that. So it's not, as Chris says, it's not designed to be all-encompassing because that would just be too big and cumbersome, I think. But it can certainly help to identify some of those benefits that you get from GI. Yeah.
Next one from Michael Green. The confidence levels are rather subjective. Is there guidance for choosing them? Bruce, do you want to just kind of give a bit of an overview on that?
Yeah, so in the guidance there is, under each benefit category, Chris talked through air quality and amenity, but for every benefit category there is a section, normally a paragraph or two, around confidence intervals, and that does provide some guidance, but ultimately, as with the whole tool really, it does require some, it's not entirely a black box, so there is some thinking and some input required from the user. So there is some guidance, but it's deliberately not prescriptive and not terribly detailed.
And I think that's quite important, because actually the context in which you're looking at it can be so variable. So to try and be very prescriptive would actually mean the guidance might be twice the length, and people normally don't thank us for having guidance twice the length of what it already is. But that.
Oh, Chris is cut out again.
Yeah, but broadly, if the context of the scheme that you're looking at is similar to the methods and the values contained in the guidance, then you choose a higher confidence score. If it's very different, or you're unsure that the benefits you anticipate will actually accrue, then you choose a lower confidence score.
One here will.
Sorry, Chris, I was just finished that off for you because you cut out again for 30 seconds.
Oh, did I? Right.
Hopefully we've addressed it.
Anyway. Yes, so sorry, I was just kind of talking around the question from Naresh, which was around, does the website provide information for self-worked examples to familiarise with tools? And in that case, there are some case studies on there, but that's generally on some of the outputs that have come out and some high-level summaries. The case studies do have information within the spreadsheets already, So there is some information there already, and the one which we've just been through today, we will be looking to upload that as well, which will again be quite helpful, I think. So looking at Amy's question, can everyone still hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, good. Okay. So looking at how we can use BeST in terms of assessing planning applications, in particular whether SuDS are meeting the amenity and biodiversity benefits, not just water storage, which is all our lead local flood authority will comment upon. So I suppose that's kind of a question and a statement there, Amy, but I think it could very much be a useful way to both help identify some of those benefits qualitatively and actually place some value on them. And again, it all comes back down to understanding that local context. So I think the tool could be quite useful there. Is there any, so from, and I'll apologize if I get the pronunciation wrong here. Is there any potential for the BeST tool to be expanded to include the likely maintenance cost of SuDS, or is there any prospect of such a project to commence in the near future? Well, costs aren't something which the tool helps develop. It allows costs to be entered. So that's probably a question from a CIRIA perspective, Suzanne, if you had any comments yet, whether there's anything around costings and helping people develop future costings.
You mean, is there any potential
OPEX side?
Do you mean is there any potential for us to expand it into that area, or?
Well, I think that's probably more of a general question, and it might be one to take away there, Suzanne, is regarding would CIRIA maybe look to develop something which would actually help around likely maintenance cost of SuDS?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly know that we've got maintenance and adoption and handover are all areas of SuDS that we are currently exploring with Sustrain, and the opportunities for future projects and developing it further will certainly be considered as a next stage for this, because I don't think this is the kind of tool that can just sit still and not be taken forward. But it would be really good to see it in use and to see how it's taken forward in practice, and that's what we would. And if anybody out there has got comments or has any suggestions or feedback, please do put those to us, and certainly we'll be able to see how we can take it in future, depending on funding, of course.
Thanks, Suzanne. So Audrey Gerber has asked around, so best of robust analysis of potential value. Are there real examples where this monetary evaluation has been recognised and the value recognised in decision making to implement SuDS above piped water management? I mean, we're certainly aware that it's been used to help identify wider benefits that have actually gone into funding applications, for example, through grant and aid funding. And in a number of cases that I'm aware of, it may not have been the thing that actually got it over the line, but it was certainly actually being asked for, and has been used in that sense. We're also aware it's been used by a number of water companies and organisations working for water companies to actually understand and help actually select maybe kind of actually alternative approaches. Okay, so we've got a question from Brendan McCarthy. Any advice on using the tool to educate developers in the value benefit of SuDS to their schemes? Well, I'm not sure I'd always be so bold that we in terms of educating people, but I do think there is some good evidence which actually does relate to a well-designed SuDS system or SuDS in developments can actually certainly enhance the development, and anecdotally, and we were never able to get enough evidence for this to come into the tool, but actually enable developments to sell quicker. So we have some great anecdotal evidence, but not anything that we could really hang our hat on. But I think it's certainly there to help a conversation, whether that's greenfield or brownfield, and even if you to go through some of the initial parts of the tool qualitatively and actually think around what that could do and actually how that might actually help, then I think there is a framework there to actually help with that with that discussion. So Hyung's asked, the suggested value of benefits in the various labor sheet is based on which year and how these economic values can be used in other regions and countries. Very good question. So it is possible to update the tool so it is to today's prices, and that is using the latest inflation values. Bruce, is it that we get out once a quarter?
Yeah, so the latest version,
Yeah.
I think, uses 2015 or to 16 prices, so it's up to date. But as Chris says, you can manually update the tool, the inflation rate.
And whilst it could be used in other regions and countries, and we are in discussions with actually in 1 or 2 countries about whether actually something could be developed, we are quite conscious of we have to be careful when you transfer values between countries, and we had some principles that we applied when we developed the tool about where the values come from and the applicability behind certain things. So I think particularly on the monetary side, for some of the values, we would certainly note quite an urgent note of caution when you're looking at it from that perspective to transfer to different countries and that. Mm-hmm. Okay, so another one from Gayatri. Is there potential for the BeST tool to be expanded to include a likely maintenance cost of SuDS? Oh no, we've had that one, haven't we? Which is one which I think you've answered, Suzanne, already. So I think that's it for the
just a second part to that question, I think, Chris. He says, is there any prospect for such a project to commence in the near future? Actually, no, it's pretty much the same as we've answered. Sorry.
Yes, yeah. But it's one which I'm sure CIRIA will take away and actually give some thought if it's not already in the pipeline, so to speak, already. Okay, well, we seem to have drawn to an end of questions there. Unless there's anyone else with a burning question, I think we'll wrap it up there. So thank you all for attending today and for staying with us, and apologies for the slight drifting in and out, even with a hardwired connection. Digital infrastructure isn't quite there yet, it seems. As I said, tools free to get, and if you have queries, then please do email them through to best@susdrain.org. So from the 3 of us, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you all very much, and do keep in touch and download it and use it and let us know what your feedback is. Thank you.
Right, what have we got?